At Christmas dinner, everything felt staged. Like the kind of night where families pretend they're closer than they actually are. Candlelight, polite laughter, the smell of roasted turkey. I was halfway through a bite when my grandfather raised his glass, smiled warmly at me, and asked a question that cracked the entire night open. "So," he said, "do you like the house I bought you?" Every fork froze midair. My parents went pale, and I just blinked. "What house?" I asked. The room fell into a silence so sharp it felt like the air itself had ears. Grandpa's smile faded. He pushed back his chair, the sound slicing through the quiet. "Show me the deed. Now." But let's go back 2 weeks, because that moment at the table didn't happen by accident. None of us knew it yet, but that dinner had been building long before anyone sat down. 2 weeks earlier, my world was much smaller. A cramped apartment in Portland where the heater rattled louder than my thoughts, and my rent was already a week late. I'd eaten instant noodles 3 nights in a row, telling myself it was comfort food instead of a financial strategy. My parents always said independence built character. They said it right after posting pictures of their ski trips, new cars, and dinners that cost more than my utility bill. My mom's messages always started sweet. "Hope you're doing okay, sweetheart," and ended with a jab. "You should learn to manage money like adults do." Silence was easier than replying. Silence didn't start fights. Silence kept the peace in a family where peace depended on me being invisible. The only person who never made me feel small was my grandfather, Edward Brooks. He was everything my parents pretended to be. Steady, fair, quietly powerful. When I was 22, he told me, "Someday I'll make sure you have a place of your own." I assumed he meant through advice, not an actual house. He hated surprises. He made plans, not impulsive decisions. So when he called me 1 week before Christmas saying, "This year I have a special gift for you," I laughed. "Grandpa, you don't have to get me anything." He just chuckled. "Oh, it's already done." I didn't give it a second thought. Not until later that night when I scrolled past my parents' latest Instagram post. Another dinner in Napa, wine glasses raised high, a caption that read, "Family is everything." It felt like a joke I wasn't in on. A few days later, something strange happened while I was searching my laptop for a client invoice. An unfamiliar email popped up. Subject line: "Congratulations on the successful sale of the Pacific Lane property." At first, I thought it was spam. Then I saw the address, Pacific Lane. My chest tightened. Pacific Lane was the street my grandfather had once mentioned years ago, telling me the houses there had good sunlight and quiet mornings. I clicked the email. It was a confirmation of a sale completed years earlier. But sold to who? And why was I receiving it? I called my mom pretending it was a casual question. "Hey, did Grandpa ever buy a house on Pacific Lane?" There was a pause, a long one. Then her voice shifted into that airy tone she used whenever she was lying. "Oh, that? No, nothing ever happened with that. The market crashed that year." "Right," I said slowly, "because I got this weird email." Her breath caught. "Sweetheart, you shouldn't open things that aren't yours. You're overthinking again." And then she hung up. That was when the calm in her voice stopped sounding like confidence and started sounding like fear. That night, every creak in my apartment felt like a whisper saying, "They lied." I dug deeper. I traced the email back to a realtor's office in Lake Oswego. The next morning, I called pretending to be a buyer interested in recent sales. The agent confirmed it. The house on Pacific Lane had been sold 3 years earlier. And the name on the seller's paperwork? Thomas Brooks. My father. My hands went numb. I thought about the conversations my parents always had about me being irresponsible, ungrateful, not ready for adult responsibilities. Meanwhile, they'd sold something meant for me before I even knew it existed. When Grandpa called later to confirm our plans for Christmas dinner, I almost told him everything, but something inside me froze. I wasn't ready to break his heart. I wasn't ready to confront anyone yet. Instead, I said, "Of course I'll be there. I'll bring dessert." I hung up the phone and stared at the snow drifting outside my window. For the first time, the world felt tilted. They stole something that was supposed to change my life. And they did it with smiles and vacation posts and lectures about responsibility. 3 days before Christmas, I drove through freezing rain to Grandpa's office, planning to drop off his gift early. His assistant, Sarah, greeted me, her smile softer than usual, but her eyes, they held something like hesitation. "I just wanted to leave this for him," I said, holding out the small wrapped box. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "He thought you'd already moved in." "Moved in where?" I asked. She looked around, then pulled a folder from a drawer and slid it toward me. "He talks all the time about how proud he is that you finally have your own place, the one on Pacific Lane." My heart dropped. She handed me the folder. Inside was a photocopy of the original deed, my name printed clearly. Behind it was a second document, the sale agreement, signed by Thomas Brooks. I left the office in a blur, the cold hitting me like punishment. I sat in my car, gripping the papers until they crumbled. It wasn't confusion anymore. It was betrayal, sharp and undeniable. I called my friend Clara. "They sold it," I said. "They took what was mine." She was quiet for a long beat. Then she said, "So what are you going to do?" My voice was steady when I answered, "I'm going to dinner." The next morning, I met with Mark Steele, my grandfather's attorney, the one man he trusted with everything. I didn't tell him everything, only enough for him to frown deeply. "You'll be there, right?" I asked. "To protect him and to expose them." He studied me for a long moment. "Both," he said. When I left his office, the rain had turned to snow, coating the city in a clean white layer, like a reset button I knew couldn't erase the truth. Christmas night arrived, glowing with warm light and cold tension. The Brooks family gathered around a table that felt bigger than the love inside the room. My parents talked about investments, vacations, achievements, everything except honesty. Grandpa, sitting at the head, looked genuinely happy, unaware of the storm building beneath the surface. He asked me about work, and I answered carefully. "It's fine. Not as profitable as selling someone else's property, though." My mother's fork clinked against her plate. My father stiffened. Grandpa chuckled, but his eyes narrowed, and then he asked the question that cracked their entire world open. "Do you like the house I bought you?" Silence swallowed the room. My mother's wine spilled across the tablecloth, like a stain spreading through everything they tried to hide. "What house?" I said again, louder. Grandpa set down his glass. "Show me the deed." My father protested weakly. "Dad, this isn't the time." "It is exactly the time," Grandpa said, voice calm but sharp as broken glass. At that moment, Sarah stepped into the room carrying a brown envelope, followed by Mark with his briefcase. They laid the documents out on the table, every lie in black ink. Grandpa's hand trembled as he traced the signatures. "You sold her house," he whispered. My father swallowed hard. "We were managing it for her. She wasn't ready." "Ready for what?" I snapped. "Ready to stop needing you?" My mother reached for me, tears streaming. "We did it for you." "No," I said, pulling back. "You did it for yourselves." The room held a silence that felt like judgment. Grandpa stood slowly, deliberately. He said, "From this day forward, you don't speak for her again." My parents stared at him like children caught stealing. He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. A silver key slid into his palm. "This was meant for you, Angie," he said softly. "It still is." He placed it in front of me. My hand shook. I wasn't sure if I was holding justice or grief.
My father stood abruptly, shouting that he was still my family. Grandpa shook his head. "You're her parents, but you're not my family anymore." It was the cleanest cut I'd ever seen. When I walked out into the snow that night, the air sliced cold against my cheeks. Behind me through the window, I could see Grandpa standing tall while my parents sat small and silent, finally facing what they'd done. I whispered into the night, "They wanted me to earn my life. I just did." The next morning, the house was quiet. My parents had already left. Grandpa handed me new papers, freshly signed, legally sound. "It's yours," he said, like it always should have been. A week later, I stood in front of the Pacific Lane house. Snow on the roof, quiet street, tall evergreens. I held the silver key up to the morning light and felt something shift inside me. For once, I wasn't someone's disappointment. I wasn't the forgotten child. I was just me. I unlocked the door and whispered, "Home." Justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just stands up. If this story touched something in you, share your thoughts and subscribe for more true family stories about truth, justice, and emotional freedom.